In a minute, I'd love for each of you to give an idea of who you are and what you've done. Clara, to you first.
My name is Clara Kamlomo from Malawi. My journey was inspired by unemployment. I had to find something for myself, and then I chose agriculture. And with IFAD support, I get the skills to establish Amazing Bee Projects, which is an organization that works towards equipping young people, women, with improved agriculture skills. So far at Amazing Bee Projects, we are focusing on production, commercialization, as well as capacity building. Now we've employed 5 permanent workers, and we hire 30 to 50, depending on the workload. We've offered over 16,000 youth trainings through our online trainings, and 100 of them from IFAD-supported integrated agribusiness hub. And now we are in the process of registering under TVET to become a TVET training entrepreneur center, so that the youth are employable.
As we were mentioning, ripple effects, and I think it's a classic example. Like many women are also at the heart of what you've done in Sri Lanka. If you could tell us about that.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Lakmini Virakkadi from Sri Lanka. So in 2019, we have a main challenge to post-harvest losses, mainly in the fruits and vegetables. This is inspired me to start my own business as Luck Nature International to manufacturing value-added food products. In our company, work with the women and rural farmers, 500, and mainly we are create job opportunities and farming to them, earn income for their families. And today we are both directly and indirectly exporting 15 countries. And IFAD help us to scale up our business from local stage to international market. So in future we are planning to go more in the global market with our healthy vegan value-added food products. So we are invited to join with Luck Nature to unlock the goodness of nature. Thank you.
Morgan, to you now. In a minute or so, what you've done.
Thank you. My name is Morgan Mwamuye, founder of Bahari Haven, a youth-led agribusiness based in Kilifi, coastal Kenya. My journey into the agri-food systems began after I got done with the university. I didn't find it easy or quite as every other youth to get a job after school. So through IFAD's advertisement of the Agribusiness Hub, I got an opportunity to intern at a company that also adds value to raw products at the coastal of Kenya. Throughout that moment or that time, I learned from farming into logistics, into processing, packaging, marketing, and even sales. This changed my whole perspective about agriculture from just survival into opportunity. From then thereafter, I went on and became the operations manager at the site I was working at, grew from there, and finally founded or opened my own Bahari Haven, which as of now, we employ rural youth and women as we add value to coconuts. Yeah, thank you.
Well done, extraordinary. So, as we mentioned a moment ago, there was this consultation process. These are some of the faces of modern agriculture and success stories and entrepreneurship in the field. But there was this meeting with many more, and some of the themes and questions emerged that you're now going to put to the President of IFAD and to Tony. First to you, Clara, your question.
My question is, what commitments and accountability mechanisms can governments, private sector, and employers and development partners, including IFAD and the Tony Elumelu Foundation, put in place to deliver safe, fair, and decent jobs for the youth?
Alvaro Lario, first to you, Mr. President.
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here with all entrepreneurs. I think Tony's also an entrepreneur. I'm the only one who's not an entrepreneur, but it's clearly that this is exactly the type of, I would say, needs when we listen to them talking about what are the market needs, what are the market gaps that they're trying to fill. This is obviously the entrepreneurial spirit that we are looking for. governments or multilateral institutions like IFAD obviously can provide I would say, the enabling environment as well as partially the de-risking mechanisms or the ability of co-finance with them. But I think it's very difficult to make this happen in reality. We know that in developed economies, entrepreneurs obviously also struggle and many companies fail. But here we have a lot of young people willing to take the risks, which is what entrepreneurship is about, and to fill in the gaps. We have listened about capacity building, about adding value in terms of the raw value chain, in terms of also post-harvest losses. These are the market failures that we really need more experiences. And IFAD is ready, obviously, to commit to continue providing the capacity building, the financing, the access to the resources, and working with the government, which I think is the most important part, on making the enabling conditions to really make many of these businesses viable.
Tony Elumelu, the same question to you.
Yeah, first is, let me congratulate IFAD and my good friend here for putting this together and helping to amplify the need to prioritize rural economies and agriculture, which is very critical for advancement of humanity. And let me say also that I'm happy to be in Italy. It's a country of entrepreneurs and a country where young people have to survive and succeed, just like in Africa. And I'm very impressed by the future of Africa is here on this panel. I like the confidence and the accomplishments you guys have made. And congrats, well done too. So for me, I like to approach your question from a practical perspective, because at the Tony Elumelu Foundation, this is what we do every day. We founded the Tony Elumelu Foundation 15 years ago, and I'm happy to say that to date we have supported over 24,000 young African men and women, each one given a non-refundable seed capital of $5,000, and trained for 12 weeks, and mentors appointed for them, etc. Out of this, about 21% of these entrepreneurs are in the agribusiness and agricultural space. And out of about 5,400 people have benefited from this program, and they are invested in agriculture and businesses. And out of the 55% of them are women, females, okay? And we like that because we've seen that empowering women is like empowering communities, nations, etc., and they succeed. And it's not by chance that we have two of our panelists here, women. And what we have seen, the people we have supported, is that they have helped to create jobs for people on the continent. These 5,000 plus have created about 480,000 jobs on the continent. They've contributed significant revenue growth in the economy. But why are they succeeding? To me, they are not succeeding just because of the non-refundable seed capital we give to them. They are succeeding because progressively, the operating environment is gradually improving. I want to commend IFAD for the awareness and the role you play in helping to create infrastructure that's critical, and also for helping to scale value chain businesses, etc., in the communities. We believe that we need to see progressively greater collaboration and cooperation between government, private sector, especially in Africa, to help catalyze more transformation in rural economies, more transformation in agriculture, so that we can collectively increase food production. Food security is critical for advancement of societies. And that is why your question is pertinent, and we need to collaborate more to make the rural economies attractive. We need to collaborate more to make agriculture, sexy and attractive. And we think that the young ones are embracing this, but they need more support from all of us.
I think that's a fascinating point, the idea of the changing faces and the youth of it, making it also something much more dynamic and attractive. Lakmini, you also had a question.
Yes, thank you. My question is, as green and digital transitions, including AI, reshape labor markets, new jobs are emerging while others are disappearing. How can policies and programs use labor market intelligence to anticipate this shift, ensure that the jobs created are decent, safe, and fair, and provide transition support or safety nets for rural youth whose livelihood are disrupted by climate change or automation?
If you'd like the answer to the question first, Tony.
I don't think I heard very well. If you can just summarize the question again, please.
Yes, I asked from the green and digital transition, including AI reshape labor markets. And new jobs are emerging, how to AI reshape and disappearance, and how to create job opportunities.
I think in the area of employment, I think your question, digital revolution, how it's affecting or helping to create more employment in the workplace.
Yeah.
No, I think that this is very critical to a message I carry. And my message is that access to electricity is very critical for economic development and transformation. We cannot talk about AI without improvement in electricity. Africa, for instance, is a continent of about 1.34 billion people. 60% of our population is under the age of 25. So this is a digital native population. But unfortunately, access to electricity is a challenge. And where you have digital connectivity issues, poor access to electricity, huge energy poverty and deficit, there's a limit to how much these young people can embrace technology. The world we live in today, technology is critical for almost everything. My concern is, while yes, it helps in so many ways to create employment, but a group of people are losing out in the digital revolution because of lack of access to electricity. So digital advancement will help to create a new kind of job. I see some of the people who support the Tony Elumelu Foundation. They make money from digital engagement, commerce. A lot. Is totally amazing. On YouTube now, there's so many people just give people access to electricity and they will take up, they do well. So yes, digital advancement is good for job creation. On the contrary, people think it will lead to job elimination, but I think it would lead to more job creation. However, we need to have that tool, that infrastructure, that access to electricity so that our young ones can advance their digital creativity, technology, innovation. Without that, we don't make progress.
It's a great point, the question of infrastructure and allowing that kind of access with then all of the potential that it has. To you, Mr. President, your view of that question of digital transformation.
So I would say, in addition to what Tony was mentioning on access to electricity, access to digital public infrastructure is also something that we're seeing that is creating even more of a divide in many countries. And clearly access to internet, you also need access to digital public infrastructure, which is very key, which also relates to energy, which relates many times also to electricity. But I think in order to be able to picture or to have jobs that are going beyond on-farm, and some of the entrepreneurs here mentioned about the commercialization, storage, distribution, exporting, you also need to have that capacity or that access to those resources where there are digital, electricity, commerce online, but for all of that, you need to really have the access. And I think what we're seeing is that access is not there for many of the young. It's about skills, but it's about access to electricity, access to machinery, access to finance, access to the ability of infrastructure in order to commercialize. So all of that is also missing. When we talk about food systems, we focus a lot on food production, but there's lots of jobs, as we have heard, also along the entire value chain that could be and are attractive to the young generation, and which are also higher added value jobs.
And critical for the kind of transformations that we're discussing. Morgan, to your question.
Yes, I do. Thank you. My question is, what measures can governments, financial institutions, private sectors, and development partners, including IFAD, take to support vulnerable youth in accessing finance, accounting for their needs? Example, the culturally appropriate and accessible blended finance windows for indigenous youth.
Mr. President, perhaps.
Yes, so probably, and you have been a participant in one of our youth agribusiness hubs, one of the perhaps missing links that we are realizing and trying to also address is the fact that we build the skills, we teach, we bring perhaps some access to the first initial capital, as also Tony was mentioned, but then there's not always a connection to the rest of the potential access to capital, where it's venture capital, where it's financial institutions. There's a missing link there in order to have that access to finance while you have the skills and you have understood also the market gaps. And this is something that IFAD, being a financial institution, needs to also try to address, how to connect many of these hubs once we are building the skills, the capacity, the knowledge to the access to finance, to the next level of finance. And this is something that with local financial institutions, public development banks, or institutions such as IFAD have to focus on at that level. I think there's enough financing in terms of the bigger multilateral development banks, on trade finance, on funding big agribusinesses. The financing is there, even from the private sector. I think that missing middle or that connection to that capital at that level is what we need to focus on trying to work with the government and the local private sector on how to provide it.
And similarly to you.
Let me just add to what he has, I mean, the issue, all the things he said, I totally agree with him. And your question is pertinent, and I understand. I wear a hat of being the chairman of a United Bank for Africa that operates in so many countries. But the point, they're not bought. I want to say that capital is very important for entrepreneurs, especially when you're taking off. However, there are other critical factors also. You know, business education is as important as access to capital. Because oftentimes, people get capital, they think capital is the only thing you need to have. And you have capital and they mismanage it. So what I always teach people, tell people when I mentor young entrepreneurs is, access to capital is important because it helps you to prove your concept and idea. But equally important, if not even more important, is when you finally have that capital, what do you do with it? Yes. So as we talk of access to finance, which is spoken about very well, we need to also talk about business education. We need to talk about hand-holding and mentorship, knowing how to navigate, because business world is not a linear world. It's up and down. And so you have capital, you start, you run into a problem. Who do you talk to in that difficult moment to counsel you, to talk to you, etc.? You need to have mentors, and also the government, which is a critical point. You talked about collaboration, and you made the point too. We need to build an environment that lends itself, that supports young entrepreneurs to succeed. We talked about electricity before. We need to make sure that the environment is enabling, and that's where IFAD, I need to commend them again in all the efforts they make, you know, pulling partners together so that collectively, that's why I'm here, for instance, so that collectively all of us can create the right ecosystem and enabling environment that will allow our young entrepreneurs to succeed. Because if our youth succeed, we are creating a better future for ourselves. We're helping to scale prosperity. We're helping to address poverty issue. We're helping to create employment. In Africa, for instance, in 2030, over 500 million people will enter the job market. We don't have the capacity to absorb them. So we need to make sure that access to finance is available, operating environment is available, the entrepreneurs know that their success is not just success for self, it's success for communities, for the entire continent. Then collectively we can address it. But yes, access to capital could be seen as daunting as an issue, but with the blended finance approach, with what some of us are doing. The Tony Elumelu Foundation, my wife and I endowed with $100 million US just to support young Africans, to give them the opportunity to do well in life. Because I was telling Melissa, I'm a product of luck. And it's not about how much we have in our bank account. It's about the impact we create, about the happiness we spread, about what we use that wealth to do in our lifetime in helping to catalyze more prosperity. That's critical. So my message to entrepreneurs is capital is important, but it's not everything. Be disciplined, be hardworking, learn to manage capital when you get it so that others who are coming behind you, if you handle your capital well, if it's funded by IFAD or by development financial institutions or by banks, they'll be encouraged to support more people. Thank you.
Fascinating. I mean, one of my questions to Tony earlier was how you find the time to sleep, actually, with everything you do. But to you, Mr. President, now, you've been talking just a moment ago very eloquently about the question of ecosystems. There's capital, but then there's the training, there's the ecosystem that allows entrepreneurs like these to thrive, to succeed, to build what they've built. You have questions for them, since it's an ecosystem in which you will belong and through which you thrive together.
Well, thank you. Yes, I would like to ask the three of them. I mean, what are the biggest barriers or challenges that you have to face in your business, and what would help from institutions such as IFAD or from the government to try to support or to surmount some of those challenges?
Perhaps to you, Clara, first.
One of the main challenges is investment in infrastructure. I'll give an example of myself, my business, and I loved it when you brought the issue to do with electricity. I applied electricity 5 years ago and I still don't have it. And this is hindering our processes in our project, in our business. Because if we had electricity for now, we could be growing our processing business. We could be having irrigation systems that are running 24/7, and that will increase the production and lead to us employing a lot of young people to join us in the agriculture sector. And the other issue is access to affordable financing. Someone could say the loans are there, the opportunities for a young person like myself to get the money is there, but is the system or the setup for me as a young person to have access to that money favorable for me as a young person? Are the interest rates that are attached to the loans payable by a young person like myself? Why are the policies and why are the interest rates attached to a loan to a young person similar as to the one who has been learning business for 50 years? So I need to be in a certain space where I am handled as a young person. I am given opportunities to thrive as a young person. And another big issue has been the market. The market system. We are good at production. We are training others. Where am I going to sell? So we need to have guaranteed about the market. Where is the market that is going to support our value addition system? And also we need to be helped to move from just production to processing and to different areas, value chains in the agriculture system, which is processing, value addition, exporting, as well as more agribusiness services. And I bet this is going to help me to scale up and even employ other more young people.
Like me to you, to the question just asked there by Mr. President.
Yes, thank you for the question. So I will explain it mainly in the 3 points. One is the access to patient and youth-friendly finance, because of the most of the startups like youth has a facing challenge for the initial investment, and they are facing very difficulties to find initial investment because very difficult procedure for some bank loans or an investor, because youth in the startup level need to ready for the investment. Then the main thing is invest for the finance, and also they want to some mentorship to how to manage these finance also. And we can arrange some flexible and also some friendly financial systems to start up in the youth then they can get your first steps to start their own business. And the second point is simplify and predictable regulation pathways. Because when we go for mainly for the international markets, we have different type of regulations, certification process, and different type of things. So when we, in the startup level and in the stage wise they are developing, so we can introduce in some simplify and some quality measures also there, and introducing some simplified procedures to go for the international market. It is, I think, very benefit to the small scale entrepreneurs to go for the international market, I think. And the third one is continuous technical and market support beyond the startup level, because most of the startups like initial stage, they are growing and in the initial stage, but in their growth stage sometimes they are in the slow down their business and something like that. But we want to mentoring and some technical support and capacity building, so the beyond the startup level, I think better to in the startup companies go for the large scale, convert to the large scale companies. Thank you.
Fascinating, and maybe we'll come back to that in a moment, Mr. President. The question of longevity and long-term support to help as they transition from startups into something older, maybe. Morgan, to you, to the answer, your answer.
Thank you, Melissa. Mr. President, from experience, youth don't lack ideas, and the ideas are not a barrier anymore. We are continuously and increasingly learning more skills and putting our efforts towards new sectors, including agriculture. However, there are other barriers which we could discuss and also put up in these kind of conversations, but then they'd never reach down or trickle down to the ruralities. I'm talking about having one same policy that runs from SMEs and also larger companies. Looking at us who are starting, startup like us, and you're putting the same policies with a company which is, has been around for over 20 years, big and large, which exports, and us who are doing local markets, meaning it would be difficult for us to first enter into the sector, because now we'll have to pay a lot of charges for certification and other policies and regulatory charges. Number two is the lack or limited access to productive assets. I'm talking about processing infrastructure. It's, when we talk about processing infrastructure, we do not want the organization and governments to give one by one each other person a machine or mechanization for their companies. We could share. That is why we would like the organizations and government to invest more in rural shared infrastructure. Because once you invest in that, this does not become a barrier anymore. We are 9 of us here, youth from all over the world. But in the short period of time we've been working together, we've seen that we can all work together and support each other in preparation for this. So therefore, when we invest in these shared infrastructures in the villages, on the ruralities, then this won't be a barrier anymore. Yeah, I think that's
fascinating. I would love, perhaps Alvaro Lario, if you'd like to respond to some of what we've just heard. One of the things that struck me is how all of you come from such different parts of the world, but so many of the problematics are the same, which must be at the heart of how you help.
Yeah, I think the challenges that we see worldwide are very similar in the sense of the, I would say, the lack of access, the regulatory environment, the capital beyond the initial investment, how to support the infrastructure side. I think that's why when we talk about food systems, many of the conversations, especially in here in Rome, we focus on the food production, but I think it goes well beyond that. I think it's obviously a sector that is very complex. It takes infrastructure, energy, water, many different components, finance, insurance, and that's, if we want to make viable business, when we talk about attracting the private sector, this is the private sector. These are the challenges we need to clearly tackle.
100%, and you're in a unique position to be able to help do that. Tony Elumelu, I'd love you to ask also now your question of our young leaders here.
Okay, but before my question, maybe let me comment a bit
Please.
on what they said, because it's quite interesting, really, as President said. All three is about infrastructure, it's about finance, it's about regulatory environment. I think from my experience, what I do, based on what I've observed, is that I spend quite some time on advocacy. I spent quite some time discussing engaging with governments, because to a large extent, most of the things they've said here, most of the things have to be provided by government. Regulatory issue is government. Issue of creating infrastructure, improvement in access to electricity is government directly or indirectly, because if government will create the right environment, private sector will go in and provide the electricity, but create the right environment. So government has a role to play there. Issue of finance, you know, the commercial bank, I wear a commercial banking hat. There's a limit to what they can do in providing the kind of risk capital that SMEs or entrepreneurs need. That is one of the reasons I created the Tony Elumelu Foundation, because I felt the $5,000 we can give out easily to an individual in a non-refundable fashion, a bank can't. It will go through rigorous processes, because a bank has to have collateral, source of repayment, and on. If you don't do that, we have different Bar 2, Bar 3, there's a charge on the bank's capital. But people don't understand this. So oftentimes they blame financial institutions. But the regulatory environment is stifling. It will not allow banks provide the kind of money. So that's why I felt, you know what, why don't I just, on my own, do something to support the entrepreneurs? Because I know they need assets. But government also. And that's why most governments set up development financial institutions. But then you go to some development financial institution, they will ask for an arm and a leg. Then you start wondering, how would these young entrepreneurs provide this collateral? There's a reason government set this up, to help provide that kind of capital that you need to take off. So I empathize and I identify with the frustration and stress of young people across the world in trade. But some economies have done it better than others. Some governments have done it better than others. So I take to advocacy. I preach to government, create the enabling environment, support the young entrepreneurs. And indeed, in some countries, it's working. In Nigeria, for instance, the new tax law in Nigeria is now to a large extent, supportive of small and medium-scale enterprise that are starting up. There are some areas where, in some countries, where regulatory environment, like they just spoke now, can be quite stifling. We need to engage government. IFAD has a role to play, all of us, United Nations, ministers, government people, to say what is good for our small-scale enterprises is good for the economy.
100%.
Economies, jobs in economies are created by small and medium-scale enterprises. We need to have our youth engaged. So if we don't support and prioritize the small, medium-scale enterprises, we will continue to have acute unemployment issues. We need to create infrastructure for people. So my time for questions, let's take it that I've used my time, but I just thought I should amplify, because these are real frustrations, and these are things we must do to move the needle. These are things we must do to eradicate poverty, create an inclusive economy, stem migration issues, and stem extremism. We need to have our young ones, any and every part of the world, optimally engaged. And the road to that engagement is each and every one of us playing the role that we need to play. Government, create the enabling environment, provide infrastructure. Private sector, handhold, support the value system, the value chain, and support the young ones, mentor. And those who are endowed, support them with your endowment. And development finance, development institutions, let's work together collaboratively to create a more conducive operating environment for entrepreneurs to succeed. Thank you.
Fascinating. Thank you so much, all of you, for taking part in this panel, for your voices, your questions, your experiences, the cleverness of what you've done, and to both of you for sharing with us those insights on what is remarkably similar in so many different parts of the world and in terms of the challenges faced. Thank you very much indeed to all of you. Thank you.